Assalamu alaikum. This video is directed to first year. Let's start lecture 1 in part 2 of our course of economics of resources. Let's start by defining what's meant by resources. What are resources? They are the factors or the inputs that are used in producing goods or services. Resources are the factors of production. We have three types of economic resources. First type is the nature resources. They are raw materials supplied by the nature, and it could be renewable natural resources or non-renewable natural resources. Renewable resources are any resources that can be replaced during the lifetime of a human being. So, they are resources that can be replaced during the human lifetime unless their use exceeds the rate that they can be replaced. For example, water, crops, wind, soil, sunlight, animals. They are the types of renewable resources. What about non-renewable resources? They are any resources that cannot be replaced during the human lifetime. So, non-renewable resources, they are resources that cannot be replaced during the human lifetime. So, they are needed to be conserved before they become depleted. For example, minerals are one type of non-renewable resources. Second type of economic resources is human resources. What's meant by human resources? People who produce goods and services, and sometimes we use the term human capital the same as human resources. Third type is capital. Capital refers to money and supplies that are used in the production of goods and services. In part 2, we will concentrate on human resources and one type of renewable resources, which is water resources. Our first topic is human resources. In this topic, we will learn the following. First, what's meant by human resources. Second, what's meant by human capital and factors that determine human capital. What are the potential impacts or effects of human capital? And how can we measure human capital and measure its efficiency? Human resources. What's meant by human resources? They represent the total population of a country, the whole population of a country that could affect economic growth. Human resources represent the total population of a country that could affect economic growth. What's meant by economic growth? We know from macroeconomic course that economic growth could be measured by the increase in GDP. So, how population could affect the economic growth? They can do so through two options. First of all, by participation in the labor market. Second, by the accumulation of knowledge. So, population of a country could have a positive impact on economic growth through the participation in the labor market and through the accumulation of knowledge. This leads us to the concept of human capital, which is sometimes used the same as human resources. As I said before, human capital is sometimes used the same as human resources, but in fact it has different meaning. It refers to any stock of knowledge and skills that the worker has and contribute to his productivity. Again, human capital refers to any stock of knowledge and skills, or we call it characteristics, that the worker has and contributes to his productivity. These characteristics, which are skills and knowledge, could be acquired through training, gaining experience, education, or it could be innate. Okay, in order to develop human capital, we have to make some investments in person. The investments in human beings take place through education, experience, training, healthcare, and so on. Thereby, human capital is accumulation of investments in human beings. Turning to the factors that determine human capital, we have several influencing factors, including skills and qualifications, education levels, social skills, work experience, intelligence, personality, creativity, health. So we have several factors that determine human capital. Turning to the potential impacts of human capital. What are the effects or the impacts of human capital? We have two impacts. Internal one on the individual levels. I mean that investment in human capital through education and training and healthcare could have positive impact on the individual that acquires the investments by increasing the efficiency of labor force and thus increasing the individual wages, which means that as the education level of the person increase, his productivity in the labor market increase, and thus his wages or return would increase. Also, one of the potential impacts of human capital on the individual level is it helps in improving health and enhancing equality and reducing fertility. On the other side, investment in human capital through education, through training, through healthcare could have a potential impact on the national level, on the whole economy, by several channels. Through improving the overall productivity, through reducing population growth, and promoting the economic growth rates. Now turning to the measurement of human capital. How can we measure human capital? We have two measures, quantitative measure and qualitative measure. You will take only the quantitative measure of human capital. In order to measure human capital, we have to know the three concepts: potential stock of human capital, utilized portion of human capital, and human capital stock in employment. First of all, when we said before, human resources refers to the whole population, and I told you that human capital sometimes used as human resources, but in fact it has different meaning. Not the whole population of any country is considered human capital. Not the whole population of any country considers human capital. We have potential stock of human capital, which is the part of population that is above 15 years old. So the potential stock of human capital is not the whole population, but it is the part of population that is above 15 years old. Okay, this is the potential stock of human capital. Turning to the utilized portion of potential human capital stock. What does it mean? It means it is a part of population that is in the working age category, between 15 years old and 65 years old. So the potential stock of human capital, it is a part of population that is above 15 years old. Utilized portion of potential human capital is those workers who are in the labor force. It is the part of population that is in the working age category, which are the labor force. And human capital stock in employment, they are the part of the labor force that is employed. So human capital stock in employment, it means employed persons. Utilized portion of potential human capital stock refers to the labor force, which is those adults that are in the working age category that have the desire and ability to work. While the potential stock of human capital is a part of population that above 15 years old. In order to measure the efficiency of human capital, there are two main measures. First, utilization rate, which measure how much of the economy's human capital stock is actually utilized or used. Second one, which is the employment rate, refers to the extent to which the human capital is actually used in the production process. Again, in order to measure the efficiency of human capital, we have to calculate the utilization rate, which measures how much of the economy's human capital stock is actually used. How could we measure this? We divide the utilized portion of potential human capital over the potential stock of human capital in order to get the utilization rate. The other measure of the efficiency of human capital is the employment rate, which refers to the extent to which human capital is actually used in the production process. How can we get the employment rate? By dividing human capital stock in employment over the utilized portion of potential human capital. In other words, we divide the numbers of people that are actually employed, over the number of people in the labor force in order to get the employment rate. This is the end of our lecture. Try to study this lecture well before going to the next one, as we are going, inshallah, to solve some questions relating to the quantitative measure of human capital and how to calculate the potential stock of human capital, the utilized portion of human capital, and the employment rate, utilization rate. So study this lecture well, and if you have any questions or comments, please contact me and I will answer you. Good luck.